I don't know about you guys, but when I hear a new song I really like, I'm inclined to play it over and over again. But then this thing happens. I start getting tired of it. It stops grabbing my attention and becomes less pleasurable over time. I might even start to dislike it. Does this ever happen to you? We reckon it does. Maybe you don't play songs on repeat, but this loss of enjoyment happens to everyone to greater or lesser degrees. Here are some other examples. Rewatching movies until they become dull. The novelty of a new job wearing thin. The loss of lust as new relationships grow old. Acclimating to hot and cold. And even our taste response to salty and sweet. This is actually a well-studied phenomenon in the field of psychology known as hedonic adaptation, or my preferred terminology, the hedonic treadmill. In simple terms, happiness stabilizes. Although we experience short-term spikes in happiness, like when we buy something new, that happiness levels off. And this tendency is true in our response to almost any experience. Here's the problem. We're predisposed to chase after that surge of happiness as if it's going to create lasting fulfillment, and we get caught in a cycle. As soon as we step forward, we're pulled right back, like a treadmill. To make matters worse, this pursuit causes us to adapt to too many comforts. Then the loss of those comforts leads to negativity, and we become inclined to avoid activities which take us away from the comforts we're used to. But some of those activities are the most deeply fulfilling. You can look at it this way. If you reach the height of comfort, you have that far to fall from. But if you adjust to the lowest of lows, anything else will feel like a step up. To be clear, we aren't just talking about living in a marble mansion with house servants. We're referring to things as commonplace as AC, TV, HD, SUV to CUV, and RC Cola versus Pepsi. Hedonic adaptation influences the clothes we wear, what we eat, where we live, how we camp in the gear we think we need, the physical discomfort we're willing to endure, and the value we place on different objects, including our own possessions. At the end of the day, all we really need is food, shelter, water, and someone to care about, to be happy. But we get swept away in a world of influence and a sea of options. How are we supposed to fight an adaptive process that is so deeply baked into our human psyche? Remember that story I told you about my first trek through the mountains? How ridiculous is it that after so much misery, I would instantly be overcome with the kind of joy that could make me cry like a baby? To put this in context, I'm not much of a crier. Just ask Paige. I've even gone years without crying, often during some of the hardest times in my life. But imagine it. If you're stranded on a desert island, it seems intuitive that finding food, water, or even spotting another castaway could bring you to tears. We go through these happiness response oscillations throughout our entire life without realizing it until subjecting ourselves to something significant. But your happiness response is always a little different, even for the same experience. What you've been doing with yourself and your current perspective play the greatest role in that response. So how do we step off the hedonic treadmill? Psychologists have proposed a few ways around this, which are outlined in their Hedonic Adaptation Prevention Model, or HAP model for short. And we would suggest that these same conclusions can be reached by oneself after undergoing a range of experiences paired with honest introspection. You'll notice some overlap between methods. Here they are. We can intentionally choose activities which prevent or slow hedonic adaptation, such as regulating certain pleasures or taking on challenges. We can pursue meaningful goals. We can manipulate our circumstances and environment in such a way as to slow or halt the adaptive process. Like my mountain fiasco. We can diversify experience. We can alter our framing of circumstances. For instance, when pitted with a challenge, you might say to yourself, "This sucks." Or you could say to yourself, "This is a chance to become stronger, an opportunity I am thankful for." And following in line with the latter, here's the really interesting bit. Two of the best ways to prevent hedonic adaptation are by expressing gratitude and practicing kindness. Expressing gratitude is a very particular means of reframing our perspective, one of the most beneficial, and something we rarely set aside enough time for. And practicing kindness? What can you say about it? How strange is it that seeking pleasure for ourselves, something which we have an innate drive to do, something which seems like it could only lead to happiness, leads to this trap of the hedonic treadmill and can perpetually escalate our suffering? But putting other people first and prioritizing selflessness, somehow that leads to the greatest joy. It's almost as if love is a paradigm built into the very fabric of our reality, a counterintuitive pursuit for which there is no higher aim.